Well, welcome to the State of Mind podcast from State of Mind Sport. This is a series exploring transition, the emotional and the mental side of major change at a time where uncertainty, upheaval and strain has perhaps been felt like never before. And our guest, as you can see this week, is a rugby international who has navigated change head on to emerge smiling just about in the south of France from where he talks to us now. Anthony Mullally, how are you?
I'm great, mate. Thank you very much. How are you?
I'm well, and it's great to see you. We obviously chat a fair bit, and I'm intrigued about your life in the south of France and how it is now. So let's start there. How are you right now? What's this period been like for you?
It's been great, mate. It's been good. It's refreshing. Well, we had the big break with due to COVID and the Toronto issue, but so that was a big change, and like I personally enjoyed having the time off. But obviously now I'm back in the rugby environment, and obviously the French league isn't full professional like Super League. So with that, you have a bit more freedom, bit more free time, and yeah, I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. Enjoying the new way of life, the new culture. Even though we are in lockdown here, it's still enough going on that keeps me motivated for sure.
And it's Carcassonne where you are, which looks absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, it's a beautiful spot. What I love about the south of France, you've all the small villages, all the small towns. They all keep the same structures. Like they don't like break everything down, and all these housing estates come up. You still keep like the authenticity of the villages, which you really enjoy, and the surroundings are beautiful as well, all the mountains and things like that. So it's ideal for me.
So the thrust of this series is what I want to get into with you today is how we accept, how we confront, how we deal with a change, make a leap like you have experienced, that the mental side of this, that decision-making process, both positive and negative, and the challenges that come with transition. So why do you think I was keen to talk to you about all this? Why do you think that I thought you might be a good podcast guest for this theme?
Because in rugby terms, I'm probably be described as a bit of an oddball. Yeah, just obviously vegan for a start. I've lived in a van, got some quite esoteric ways away from rugby. So yeah, that's probably a few things that come to mind.
Well, I've got to know you a bit over the last few years, and it's your philosophy towards life's challenges that I'm interested in most. What drives you? What makes you? How you appear to have made some quite big changes and taken them in your stride. Would that be a fair assessment of where you are?
Yeah, no, yeah, it's what I try to do. It's what I try to embrace. It's more like embracing the change, and loosening the kind of structures we have on our outlook on life, and stopping the resistance. Because with the resistance comes like the suffering. So that's my work. Not my work. Like philosophies I've read and I have to try apply into my own life. If that makes sense.
Let's start at the beginning though, and see how we evolve into the Anthony Mullally that we have in front of us today. What were you like pre-rugby? What were you like as in your youth, and what was your drive then? How did you arrive into the world of professional sport?
So you mean pre-professional rugby? So like
pre-professional, yeah.
To be honest, I started not late, but I was 12 when I started playing. I was doing like a lot of like martial arts before that. I just wasn't really into rugby when I was doing it. Everyone's like 9, 10 and playing. I just wasn't into it. I remember going to a training session, a few training sessions, and I just said to Mum, I said, I just don't want to do it anymore. I don't enjoy it. Then into my martial arts, and then obviously it started high school. Obviously, I wasn't one of the man-childs. I wasn't one of the guys who had armpit hair at 9 and a beard. I wasn't one of those, but I was average height for my age, probably just above average. So, and all my mates were like, come and train on the park. Like, I lived right next to the park in Widnes where my mates' team trained. So I just like agreed to it. All my mates were there, and then I started training probably about 12, and then within within a year, I was on a Wigan scholarship. I was actually on Wigan scholarship first, and yeah, and from around, this is around 14, 15. I never really. I didn't do great in school. I really wasn't interested. You couldn't. There was nothing that stuck attracted me to some sort of stimulus. Apart from, I actually really liked art. I was good. Art's one of the only GCSEs that I passed. Art and philosophy. No, just joking. So yeah, and it just kind of happened. And then when I just signed for Widnes under 18s when I was 15, and then I was kind of like, all right, well, this is something that I want to do. Like the reason for me not doing good in school wasn't because I was like, I'm going to play rugby. I don't really care. That wasn't the case. Like I've got a son now, and he's 11, and he wants to play rugby. He's like, I'm going to play rugby when I'm older. But that's mainly because of me, because he looks up to me. I wasn't like that when I was younger. If you asked me, I wouldn't have known. So yeah, it was only as it started to unfold, I started playing well in the academy and getting sniffs at first team, and I was like, well, actually, this is probably something that I can do for a living. And that's kind of happened. But I would say I was a pretty shy kid growing up. But obviously, the more like you start going out with your mates, start drinking cans in the park when you're 15, and started to like become more social, and probably personality started to come out a bit more then. Yeah.
I find it fascinating that you can become a professional sportsman, and I don't mean this in a detrimental way to you, without that drive. And I say that because as someone who was desperate to be a professional footballer and failed, and it felt like my world collapsed when I was a teenager, and I realised it wasn't going to happen for me. Yet you kind of were never really that bothered, or do you think that sometimes that desire can be too much and it can get in the way?
Potentially, but sorry, let me retract my statement a little bit. So to the point where when I was like 15, 16, I wasn't that bothered. But as soon as I kind of got the sniff, and it kind of aligned with my purpose, right, then I did everything I possibly could to make it. And I was like the most dedicated, like, well, as all kids are dedicated to make that next step. I did everything that I could have done. So yeah, but I agree. I think you can definitely be too not necessarily too determined, but the determination can turn into kind of like an anxiety. And I think and I definitely experienced that early in my career, like thinking back to like Huddersfield, when I'd get my chance to play when I was 21, and I'd just be so nervous and I'd just blow out. I'd fly out the line, try and make a big hit, or like do something, then I'd be absolutely gassed. And it's just because I was too much nervous energy. I was obviously, we're all in our fight or flight response when we're playing, but I was too far. I was like using up my limited sources. I was just it wasn't until a bit later I learned to like calm down a little bit.
So how much did those formative years of professional sport teach you about yourself and your development as a person, and what made you tick and what you wanted in life?
So like Widnes to early Super League.
Yeah, well, just those years when that transition into becoming a professional sportsman, perhaps before you hit the big time, which I would say would be Leeds.
Yeah.
Those years, what did you find out about yourself?
Lots, mate. It was a great time. Well, not at the time. So I went to Brisbane when I was 19. Brisbane Broncos, played under 20s there, and that was an amazing experience. I came back to Widnes, and played their first season back in Super League. I think it's 2011, something like this, and played every game at 20, playing well in like the headlines and stuff. And then I signed for Huddersfield. Obviously, at the time, Huddersfield were top of the league, competing as they had that few years of like winning the league leaders when I was there. But before that, yeah, and then I signed for them. Widnes kind of got a bit funny around that, so I didn't really play again the rest of that season due to that. But so I went from Widnes kind of like playing all the time and like being 20 and probably thinking I was better than I was, and going to Huddersfield, and who were obviously a top 4 team, top 2 team at the time, and yeah, having a bit of a reality check in terms of, well, you're not as good as you thought you are, and you're not guaranteed to play. So the first year and a half at Huddersfield was spent in and out with the team. Like you said, playing 1 week, getting really worked up, and I wasn't playing, blaming other people, and I still did that in my first year at Leeds. So I didn't really learn until I was like 25, 26. And so yeah, a lot of years like being up, like up in that emotional roller coaster. 1 week playing, it's the best thing ever. Then next week you dropped, and it's the end of the world. Like that's how it was for me. That's how much it meant to me. And then obviously then my last year and a half at Huddersfield, I was playing regularly. Then I signed for Leeds. And do you want me to carry on with this, or?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fascinating listening to you kind of pick your way back through it and trying to work out what was fueling you and what your ambitions were, because I can almost feel you stepping into your career and then wanting it more, and then I'm guessing you signed for Leeds because you wanted more. You wanted to be that big guy at the big club, right? And you wanted to win stuff.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Big guy at the big club. That's what I wanted to be. I think I said this before. I wanted to be that in that Headingley scene in Leeds, going out thinking what girls think of me and stuff like this. That and being completely honest, that was part of my drive, which isn't really ideal. And it's not a sustainable motivator. But yeah, it was to win trophies was my main thing. I say this a lot. I always remember Terry O'Connor when we were younger. Like he come into me college and he had his Super League ring on. He was just like tapping it at the table, not showing off, but he just had it on him. I remember looking at it and just thinking, like, well, that's what I want. Like and that is all I wanted. Like, so for me, like the ambition was like progression, like witness Huddersfield Leeds trophies. That was, and I hadn't thought or looked past that. So getting to Leeds, again, I played a fair bit in my first season, but when I got dropped, I was pointing fingers at Mac, pointing fingers at Davo. Yeah, and like I never, the old saying, you point one finger, you got three pointing back, and I never did that. I never actually thought, wait, is it actually something I'm doing wrong here? So the turnaround in my form and my career really come when I started to take accountability for my own actions and not blaming anyone else, even if it might have been someone else. Me wasting my energy, it's like that. I'm throwing out sayings today, but they're saying like holding resentments, like you taking poison, hoping someone else gets sick. So like once I kind of like took that accountability, things started to turn around. I worked harder. And yeah, obviously then 17 took care of itself, and then that was that.
So what was there a moment was there a wake up call moment whether you just thought, actually, I'm the problem here, I'm not going to win anything unless I sort myself out? Or was there something someone said to you? Was there something that happened? Or was that a gradual realization?
Yeah, there was a few, and Mac had a big part to play in it.
This is Brian McDermott, of course.
Yeah, sorry, Brian, and he'd love to tell you that himself, but he did. Like we had a love-hate relationship at the start of Leeds, and then obviously it just developed into a good one. Like obviously, then I went to Toronto with him, etc. But yeah, it just can't. Like I say, it's just when I realised. There wasn't something that they did that made me realize. I think it was just after the season when I went travel. I went to like South America, and like I just had like a lot of realizations when I was like in the Amazon and stuff. And it sounds pretty cliche, but it was. And I just had these like moments of like anxiety when I was to be honest, I was like really hungover in the jungle. And I had these like really real moments of clarity amongst this like crushing anxiety. So yeah, and like I come back, and then one of the best moments was the start of 17, second game. I started against Lee. I didn't play bad, but I didn't play great. And Matt got me in his office in his blue chair that he loves talking about. That he had big convos with, and I had some like fiery combos with him the year before but it was just he didn't bollock me. We looked at the video and just like look like that, and everything he said, I was just like, fuck yeah, like that's fucking fair play. I'm not doing what I should be doing, and I did the little things. he like maybe I just like it was just more like in defensively or whatever. I just like worked really hard at, and then from that kind of a sofa meeting, like the year that season took care of itself. I just kept working on those areas, and yeah, it was great after that. So that was one of like the definitive moments as well.
So the 17 grand final was where you peaked, and you got that grand final that you saw on Terry's finger when he gave that talk. You got one on your own after Leeds won it at Old Trafford. What do you remember about that moment and more the feelings around it, that you'd achieved something that had become your burning desire?
Yeah, at the time it was great. It's just like a surreal, like euphoric feeling. Really, it's like that thing you put on the pinnacle of your like existence at the time. You get it, and yeah, it's incredible. Obviously, I got bloody drug tested after it, and that kind of took the thing off it, which was obviously a pass was fine, but it's just like I couldn't go in and celebrate straight away because I wanted to go right quick, come on, go get it done so I could get back. But the kind of things were over, and yeah, it was just like a euphoric, surreal feeling. But like I think I've mentioned this in previous stuff I've spoken about recently. Like it's kind of like there's like a sobering effect after that, and then like if you're at a club like Leeds, it's either are you going to after you've sobered up after the thing, it's like right, start again. We go again now, and if you don't have the ambition to do it again, it's quite it's quite the task, like mentally. And for me, I just didn't have it. I realized that was like a layer of my purpose that I've peeled, and it's just winning another trophy wasn't important to me. And obviously I learned more lessons in terms of like looking for like fulfillment and validation outside of yourself, like in superficial things. Not necessarily, when I say superficial, I don't mean like a fancy car. I mean like external things. Like obviously external things are great, but I don't think they can bring like a lasting fulfillment and content, because everything outside of ourselves is temporal, subject to change. So we need to have like a inner foundation first, and that's kind of where kind of like stepped into like my mindfulness journey as well, and things like this. So well, a little bit earlier than that, but that kind of solidified it for me. But yeah,
did it surprise you feeling like that when you've set yourself such a glorious goal as winning, getting to the top of your sport, which you did, getting to the top of the ladder, winning the Super League, getting that grand final ring, which you wanted to do, and then getting there and thinking, actually, I don't really want this. I don't really want this anymore. Did that surprise you, that you felt that shift happened?
Yeah, it didn't just surprise me. I felt lost. I was completely lost, and to be fair, it wasn't like I don't want this anymore. It was like I'm so glad I'd done it, but like I don't even know where the ring is now. Like I know,
right.
I my mum's got it somewhere like that. Like so what I mean is, yeah, I just felt lost. I was like, wow, my sense of like the sense of purpose that I once had was completed. So it's like, what's next? And not in terms of what's next, how do we scale this? Because it's not the case. Well, I didn't want to outreach that. I just wanted to I needed to align with something else. And that turned out to be, obviously in rugby terms, playing for experiences in different countries. So obviously Toronto. Now I'm in France. So I was like, right, I was only 27 at 26, 27 at the time. I'm only 29 now, but I'm like, I don't just want to finish playing. Obviously, I've still got a lot to give to the game, but I can't keep playing for a team like Leeds, or because amazing club, amazing team, but it's just not for me. The pressure, not necessarily the pressure, because I don't mind pressure, but just the pressure to do that thing when I'm not aligned with doing that thing anymore, if that makes sense. So yeah, that's kind of what it came down. And in 2018 was just that was showing in my performances, and I had a few concussions, and obviously Matt left and all that. So 2018 was just a shit fight for the whole of Leeds. So
yeah, no, it certainly was. And we'll get on to Toronto in just a sec. I mean, just on this point, because I think we're we're at the key point that I'm so interested in terms of the internal transition that you have just so eloquently detailed. That was quite a brave kind of, not so much decision, but a brave realization, because I would suggest the easier path for you to take there would just to be to carry on. Even if you realize that flame's kind of flickering out a little bit, you're on a good salary, play in a good job. You could keep turning up, you know, not necessarily winning things. You could have the lifestyle that you said you wanted when you first signed for Leeds, and just, you know, be seen when you're out. Oh, there's that guy from Leeds. You could have still carried on with that lifestyle and kind of, for want of a better expression, just got away with it. You made the decision that actually this isn't my focus, my purpose. I need something more. I need more fulfillment. So you made the decision to change, right?
Yeah, and since then, I really don't mean to self-glorify myself, but it happened again with like after Toronto stuff. I know you're going to get onto that in a sec. Yeah. After that happened, obviously I could have stayed in Super League on a good salary again, but I'll come to France compared to what I was on next to nothing, and it's my choice. It's fine, but what I realised about myself, I can't really fake it. I can't. I know so many players, and I have a lot of respect for them. They're doing it purely for the money, but to support the families, to support the wives, the kids, and it's noble. I respect that. But fortunately, I'm not. I don't have I've obviously got a son to support, but I don't have a full family to look after. So I mean, like I say, I can't fake it. If I'm not single, I always like to say I'm a Brad Singer said, I'm a window to my emotions. So if I feel a certain way, I don't really fake it. I don't really hide it. And that's exactly shows on the pitch. If I'm not enjoying it, it's not aligned. It's not serving me. I don't do well. So that's why I'm here in France right now.
So just, I don't need to go into the details of Toronto. You know, anyone listening to this, if with a knowledge of rugby, will know what happened with Toronto and how kind of the dream, well, COVID really ended it. The dream turned sour, etc. I'll discuss the aftermath of that, because I spoke to you a fair bit during that period. But one thing on your stay in Toronto that fascinates me listening to you talk is you went with Brian McDermott, your old coach at Leeds, who is a very demanding coach, right? And listening to you talk, by the time you've gone to Toronto, you have discovered that there are other things in life making you tick. So how are you still managing to play for a coach who is so demanding when you've already kind of made the decision that this isn't the be all and end all for me, if that makes sense?
No, it does, and it's a good question. And I kind of let Mac know this before I signed there. So we went and met at the Wheatwood, and because obviously we had a good relationship by the time he left Leeds, but he had given me a hard time when I was at Leeds, but he does it for the betterment of the player, and it worked with me, and it's worked with a lot of other players, and that's one of the things I respect about him. But so he kind of said look, it won't be like Leeds, it'll be obviously he just kind of lay off me a bit, you know. And I just said to him, look, I said, where I'm at now, I said I was looking at considering going to rugby union, a big change. I just wanted a big change. Obviously Toronto was a big change. I said I'm struggling to get I said I'm struggling to get motivated. I said I'm struggling to get motivated for it, and I think he says something like you need pride in your performance again and stuff like this. And we had a good convo, and I let him know. I was pretty open and let him know where I was at. And because it was that year, it was in the championship, and we were winning every game convincingly. That was a bit of that made it a bit easier for me as well, if that makes sense, because I knew we wasn't going to be struggling to stay in Super League or getting pressure to to win. I know, well, we had pressure to get in Super League, but looking at the team, we was always going to do that, you know. Even though Fev gave us a good run in the final, we was always highly top odds to make getting back in Super League.
So that period when it all ended at Toronto, and I think that's probably what most people, given what's happened over the last 12, 18 months and the financial anxieties and again, bringing it back to transition, which so many people now are having to confront change in their life just because of the nature of what's happened. Your attitude and your reaction to what happened when Toronto ended and you had that period of not being paid, and a lot of players found that very difficult. And your reaction was, right, buy a camper van and disappear. Talk me through that process of what happened.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I'd kind of like that feeling started when I was playing again. That feeling started to creep in again of like, oh, like, is this what I want to be doing and stuff? So like by the time the season got cancelled, I'll be honest, I was pretty happy. And I was like, yeah, like obviously because with Toronto you got paid gross, so you have to pay your tax, which I've just had to do, which wasn't ideal. I spent most of it on the camper van. But yeah, so I used that money to get the camper off, and I was just like, right, well, we can't. My thing, it's not my thing. It's a Stoic philosophy. It's like we can't handle what happens to us, but all we can control is our response. So I was control, and in that response, it gives you an element of control. So I chose to go to Cornwall in my van and make the best of the situation. And I worked down there a bit as well to take care of bills when obviously because I wasn't getting paid. I'd sold my house in Leeds the year before, so I didn't have a mortgage. I was pretty free. Not free. I still had bills to pay, but not as much as the guys with 3 kids. Yeah. So for me, it wasn't so bad. But like I say, I empathise for like your Chair Stanley who had 4 kids, Ricky, you're the same, and stuff like that. I know they're all on good salaries, and some people say yeah, but they're on this much. But it's all relative at the end of the day. Like you're not getting paid, and then next thing you don't get paid for 6-7 months. It's gonna affect you, isn't it?
Yeah, because what I remember about that period, and you know, we talked a bit during that period, and we messaged quite a lot. And I remember when it was all kicking off, you know, you sent me a few messages saying, you know, can you help create a bit of, can you make sure people in the media know what's going on at Toronto? I remember those conversations we were having. What struck me is you were saying, look, I'll be all right, but can you make sure my mates are looked after, because they're the ones who are struggling there. And it was like I was struck by your attitude to that, because you were like, well, I'll look after myself, but these guys need the money. I was like, well, surely you do as well. But your thought was for other people at that time, as I recall it, rather than yourself.
Yeah, like because I probably part of me was a little bit guilty that I was down in Cornwall, like surfing every day, doing a bit of work, just chilling out, knowing that like obviously my mates were struggling a bit. So that's kind of why I was wanting to do that. But like it's like you've always got some sort of choice, haven't you? And my choice was to do that, and I was just what's the word? I don't know. I was just very fluent with the situation. I had like a little bit of money coming from like supplement sponsorship and like bits here and there, and I was just being, is it thrifty? Is that the word? I don't know.
Thrifty, yeah.
I don't know.
Thrifty.
Like resourceful. I was just being resourceful to get just to not go in some sort of like financial like deficit. So that was kind of that was me thinking behind it.
Has money ever been, how big a consideration has it been in terms of your priorities, or have you always been along the lines of as long as I can get by, I won't ever let money affect my decision making in life?
Like I won't lie, when I was younger, in my early 20s, like I had like, oh, I want to be on this when I go to this field. I want to be on this. Then when I'm 28, I want to be on this. Like when I was younger, I remember like thinking having these like figures I wanted to be on in my head. So like in me like late teens, early 20s, yeah, because then I was still kind of I was still focused on status and like what if me having this, because the only reason people, like a lot of people want to have certain things is to be perceived a certain way. So I was still caught in that kind of ideology. But obviously once that breaks down, it's like I'm not one of those. You get a lot of people saying, oh, money is the root of all evil, money is this and that, when it's not. Money is just it's a tool of exchange. People used to use sheep as for money, you know, like all sorts of different materials. That's all it is. And like I'm not under the illusion that I'm thinking money provides security, but as long as you have that security, everything, all your needs are met, and anything else above that is just a luxury, you know. So as long as you're not, because no one wants to be worrying about the finances, did he? Like it's not a nice place. It's not a nice place to be. So as long as you can be in a place where it's secure, I think that for me, that's all that matters. Like anything else you put in yourself for wanting things, that's just self-suffering, because you're trying to create a demand for certain things that you don't really need. So then you're creating a worry for this stuff. If that makes sense.
So if Leeds 2017 grand final was probably light bulb moment one, post-COVID Toronto campervan was light bulb moment two, and was that when you really realized and gave yourself the opportunity to connect with your true purpose and what you wanted, you know, the surfing, the hiking, the nature, the pathway of finding yourself as a man that you've spoken about as well? Was this the moment that you were kind of able to focus on all of that in one go?
Yeah, of course. Like I had like 4 months just like living amongst the elements in a van. Like you could, like, I'm in a cliff in a field in Newquay. Like you come out in the morning, just like the wind batters you in the face. Like on a stormy night, the rainy nights, the van's shaking, and you're susceptible. You're susceptible to the elements, and it's great. And like you kind of break away from that like constant shelter. I know I still got a roof over my head in the van, and I'm not complaining. It's great, but you kind of like become more in the flow of things, like the natural way of living, which we're really disconnected to, and it gave me time to process things, and like they think of like start doing the workshops to break down certain stigmas, and like to help people reconnect with nature, etc. So yeah, that's and like being in, like talking about the money, being in the van and not getting paid by Toronto, in a way it was a good thing, because it made me realize like I don't need that much to get by. So obviously I was on a good salary at Toronto, but when you're on it, the fear of losing it, it's terrifying. But then when it gets taken from you, and you have to be resourceful, it's like, well, actually, yeah, you don't need that so that you can live on a lot less and be happy, you know.
I can almost sense people, you know, watching this interview and listening to this podcast, and especially given the tough times so many people have had over the last year or so, and thinking, I love that ice chair. I wish I could just do that. I mean, my partner said it to me a lot, you know, when times have got tough as they have over the last few years. Why don't we just go, well, you know, let's just forget about this and go away somewhere. Yet we don't do it. You know, we all listen to you and think, and I'm sure people are thinking, that sounds great. What stops us? What stops us making that leap? We're talking about transition. What stops? What is it inside that stops going and doing what you've done? You know, why don't we do it?
I mean, it comes down to fear, doesn't it? It comes down to fear, and it comes down to attachment. And like there's all different types of fear. Fear's kept us alive for a long time. It's not a bad thing. But I was listening to something lately. It was quite extreme, but I do think it's a good point. So they say, like between rational and irrational fear. So if you've got like a tarantula, say you're scared of a tarantula, a big tarantula on your arm. If you're scared of it, that's an irrational fear, because it's probably not gonna hurt you. But if you've got a black widow on you and you try stroking it, it's gonna kill you. So that's a rational fear. So it's learning the differences of rational fear, and it's like, and then talk about attachment. There's nothing wrong with attachment. I'm attached to plenty of things, but we can be attached to our roles we play in society. So you might want to go and do this, but at the same time you like this sort of lifestyle, and you like doing this. So, and it's all a story that we've created for ourselves in our mind. We're all living like a collective illusion, really, aren't we? That we perceive through our retinas. So it's like, can we loosen our grips on these attachments we have? Because if it starts to cause you pain and fear, then you're probably too attached. Like I said before, we try to resist change, and the resistance causes pain. So instead of like being fluent with whatever happens and adapting and adjusting accordingly. We don't want it to. We're stuck, but no, I don't want this to change. I want to keep this, and that stopping and stuff, that creates the fear and the pain. So yeah, I think it's about loosening your grips on our perception and the things in our life.
I'm conscious we're kind of running short on time a little bit, so but I'm conscious we've talked for whatever we have now, 30, 40 minutes, and I haven't even asked you what you probably get asked about most is that, you know, you went vegetarian and then vegan, and you competed as a top level rugby international without eating meat. I know you've spoken about that in a lot of interviews, but people are still surprised when I tell them that you have done what you've done, having made a life decision like that, which, coming back to making big changes and transitioning into different areas of living, that was another example of that.
Yeah, So it's never like easy way to say this, because what I'm about to say probably make you feel uncomfortable. So like when I first started to look into like I basically didn't know what happened to I knew animals got killed, and I was just like, oh, that's just the way it is. Animals are there for us to eat, but I didn't know the way they got killed, and I also didn't know the impact it was having on the planet and the environment. And so it come down to, so for me, I thought I was a kind of compassionate person, and then when I realized what I was contributing to, it made me question that. I was like, well, I say this, but I'm contributing to this, so can that be true? So that's the part that I feel like makes people uncomfortable, because then that's going to make you question it or make other people question it. So, but that is for me, that's what it was. I was like, well, I can't continue to support this if I am a man with morals and like integrity. So yeah, so I took a long road to cutting out meat. It took me 2 years to go from eating meat to vegan. Stopped eating meat, then chicken, then fish, vegetarian, then vegan in that order, and it just didn't affect my performance one bit. And I think that's largely due to the time it took. Like, I think scientifically, it's, like, I know a lot of gut microbiome experts, if they recommend, if you are going to go plant-based, do it slowly. Like, research, make sure you're replacing what you were getting from meat with in your diet with whatever you're putting in, so there's no shortfall. Because I've met so many people, and they go I went vegan, but then I felt really sick and I had no energy and stuff. But it's like, well, yeah, you went from eating meat for 25 years to cutting everything out. Like, of course there's going to be some sort of shortfall. So yeah, that's kind of how it happened, mate. Just like a slow transition.
And I'm interested too in the peer pressure element of that. I've done these podcasts before and reminisced about the macho dressing rooms, and you know, I can imagine, well, I know for a fact that you will have been you'd have been the foot that, you know, you'd have been, many jokes would have been aimed at you for the fact that you were doing all this, and you know, people would have teased you for it. Well, I know they did, and you didn't let that affect you at all.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, like all the time, like every day. Like, when we for team lunches, people throw like plants at me and go, "There you go, well, that's your dinner," etc. and stuff. And it's all like hide. I just laugh. Like, it never once. I could be honest and say it never once affected me. Never once made me feel bad. It made me feel any sort of way. And I felt a frustration. I never actually felt sad or angry. I did definitely feel frustrated, but more the fact I was just like, come on, like, I've been doing this for quite a while now. Let's drop it in that sense, because I'm like, and to a point where I'm like, you know, at the end of the day, I'm doing this for my son, and I'm doing it to use to do my part for the planet. Like, I'm not doing it for some selfish, like, self-righteous reason. I'm doing it to improve the impact, my impact on the planet. So like, then you get shit for it. You get shit for trying to be a good guy, you know. But that's rugby culture. So that's a different story entirely.
but at the same time, I'm guessing you're not a vegan preacher. You're not trying to affect anyone else. I mean, I'm coming at from the side of someone who's given up alcohol, and I would never try and lecture others about why they should or shouldn't be drinking.
No, but
I've made that decision for me, and I kind of keep my views on that to myself. If someone wants them, I'll share them, of course, but I don't want to be that person, for want of a better expression.
Of course, yeah. I'll be honest. I feel like for every vegan or plant-based person, when they start going vegan, plant-based, once they start looking into all like the research and like mainly like the slaughterhouses and what's actually, you feel this like kind of like anger, like, well, why are we, and like you kind of want to tell people. And I probably did go through that phase right at the start, but then I realized it's just not helpful. If people are going to push back harder, they'll probably eat more meat to spite you. So yeah, I know Single probably definitely did. But so yeah, no, definitely. Like you probably see from the Instagram, I'd probably talk about like sustainability, but I never call people out for eating meat or anything like that. No, it's not right now. It's not. I'm in no position to judge anyone else.
I've loved this conversation. I'm fascinated by your life journey, your philosophy, your attitude to life. If we were going to schedule another conversation like this in, say, 5 years' time, what do you think that's just a bit like a job interview final question. What do you think your life would be looking like if we had this conversation again in 5 years?
I think I'll have like flowers in my hair, like beads on, like a white gown. I think I'll probably, 5 years, I reckon.
Would you still be playing rugby for a start?
You mean in terms of what my life is going to look like aesthetically?
Well, yes. What would you be doing with yourself? And
okay, yeah. So I reckon I'd probably finish rugby like for a year or so. I reckon I'll be running, hopefully running like retreats full time around the world. Like doing the work I'm doing, trying to spread that message, trying to make a difference to men, the planet. Yeah, just trying to be a goody two shoes, really.
You're allowed to plug your retreats if you like before we go. I know you're working hard on them at the moment.
Yeah, well, I've got two. Well, one retreat this year at Cudvar in North Cornwall in July 17th, and I've got a workshop in Watergate Bay in Cornwall on August 29th. They're the only two events I've got so far this year, but I'm looking forward to that. Like rewilding retreats, spend a lot of time in nature, breathwork, surfing, hiking, etc. So yeah, should be good.
It's been great talking to you. I appreciate your time. And thank you as well for listening. Take good care, and we'll see you next time.